All right, the history of Rome, the most historic city in the world. We're right in the middle of it all here, where the city thrived as in the Republican Empire and where everything started. So Rome is 28 centuries of history. 28 centuries! Just think about that for a second, how long that expands into time. 100 years is a century. It's incredible. So we have the Colosseum behind me here, Equiline Hill. We have Palatine Hill down there, Capitoline Hills over there. We got the Forum over there. This is where this is a temple to Venus, the largest temple ever. This is the area of the 7 hills where the city started. Layers upon history out there. Centuries, 28 centuries of history. Let's hear about it. A city like no other. Rome. Built as a holy city into its pagan religion. The origins of Rome are definitely old, so they found evidence of people being here since about 14,000 BC, which is obviously not the Romans. This is prehistory time. Because of the river Tiber, which, all right, what would be Roman history without a part on the Tiber River, the famous Tiber River. Not very scenic at this spot, but this is where we are right now, so this is where we're going to tell the story. All right, so one of the longest inhabited cities continuously in Europe. All right, so around 1500 BC, there seems to be evidence of a village that shows continuous settlements because of the rush Tiber River. Okay, so now we're getting to a little bit of myth and legend, and Palatine Hill right there where the emperors lived in their palaces, and these are the ruins. This is where the city started. So we're long before any of this existed, even the ruins. This is part legend. I like legends though, so let's hear the story. The end of the Trojan War in what is now Turkey is thought to have taken place between 1260 and 1180 BC, where Troy was sacked by the Greeks using the Trojan horse to sneak into the city. A Trojan named Aeneas and some of his followers escaped by boat and headed into the territory of the Phoenician Carthaginians in North Africa, modern-day Tunisia. He seduced the queen there, but abandoned her, creating a hatred that the North Africans kept with them of the Greco-Romans for millennia. And still, to this day, there's a division between Europe and North Africa. That kind of spans back 4,000 years, 5,000 years, really. So Aeneas and his party, who escaped the Trojan Wars, small group of people, left Carthage and they headed west to the west coast of Italy, thought to settle in the territory of Latinum. The Latin king made an alliance offering his daughter to Aeneas. This caused a war though, because another local king was already promised to the daughter. In the war, the king of Latinum, so this isn't here, this is in another place of Italy, not far from here, what was known as Latinum, where the word Latin comes from. So in this war between the king of Latinum and Aeneas' Trojans versus the other Latins, Aeneas and the king were victorious. And the two peoples intermarried, the Trojans and the Romans, creating the people that would become the first Romans. The DNA was established. The Etruscans, who had a very strong culture of pottery and all kinds of other interesting stuff. Ciao, ciao. Good place for a video, not too many people, except for you guys, sorry. Okay. The Etruscans had a strong culture in the region for centuries with all kinds of cool art, religion, and trade networks. They had these pottery things where they had art on it. We saw it in the Vatican Museum, it's really cool. They were north of here. So while the Latins around here were farmers and herdsmen, initially the Latin kingdom, which I was just talking about, It was more weak, you know, even though this legend is so amazing. So, most importantly, like the Temple of Venus here, this was the largest temple ever to be built in Rome, especially in the Empire era. So the religion is thought to be a proto-European set of gods and goddesses that stretches back maybe to 10,000 BC or before. They have places in Turkey where they have religious art that they can't really think of. Göbekli Tepe, the oldest religious buildings from like 11,000 BC or something. So different cultures, different places had these gods, goddesses, basically explaining nature and different things like that, which carried into the Greek gods and goddesses and the Latins that were here for millennia. We're talking millennia. All right, back to the legend. So around 800 to 770 BC, centuries later, after the Trojans came in and won the area, there was a Latin king named Numitor. He had a daughter, but his brother, the king's brother, coveted the throne and ordered the daughter to be a Vestal virgin. So the Vestal virgins, over here in the forum, we're going to talk about in a little bit, were these priestesses that were chosen as children. Their whole life they had to be virgins, most of their life, and they had to do a bunch of rituals in this temple over here, and it's a really interesting tradition. So the brother made the king's daughter be a Vestal virgin, but she became pregnant. This is where it gets interesting. She was pregnant and had 2 twin sons. So everyone claimed that she was raped, but technically she was a Vestal virgin and did not have sex. And she claimed that it was the god Mars that impregnated her of the 2 twin brothers. So, sound familiar, right? Of virgin birth, like Christianity, Virgin Mary. This kind of thing has actually happened in Egyptian religion, Mesopotamia, Hinduism, I think, this myth story. It carries on, Babylon. It's more, all these stories are more interconnected than you think. So, the 2 twin sons were Romulus and Remus, sons of Mars, from a Vestal virgin, a mysterious virgin birth. Sound familiar? It does, right? Anyway. Real interesting way why the Romans so easily became Catholic. The stories are very similar. She was thrown in prison because she was supposed to be a Vestal virgin and she got pregnant. The twins were sent down to the river to be drowned in the river Tiber. Their names were not given yet. They're babies. But the men that set up with the task got lazy. And the river was flooding. The river's over there. The river was flooding. So they just left the babies on a couple of reeds where they could be safe. But those babies survived, man. They flowed down the river, and what discovered them was a she-wolf. A wolf. The she-wolf supposedly suckled the babies with its milk to survive, so that they could survive. A herdsman found the babies and raised them with his wife. So there's a cave nearby here where they think the wolf lived, and the house where Romulus was grown up, it was worshipped for centuries after, into the time of the empire during this time. Sorry, but let's cut from that real quick, because this is the actual spot where Romulus's house was, 753 BC, the first king of Rome. We were on the other side over there, which was also part of the city, but this seems like it's the early part, because there's a cistern over there that's from the 700s BC, maybe 600s, it said. This right here is more where Rome started. Got some ruins down there. The house of Romulus was worshipped for over 1,000 years because he was the creator of Rome, a living god king. So people came here, it was like a shrine, all the way up until like the 400s, maybe even longer than that, 500 AD. So they maintained it, and this is what's left. Romulus, King Romulus, founder of Rome, lived right there. This is the area we're about to talk about where Rome started. So this is where the Imperial Palaces were, the home of Augustus Caesar, Flavian Palace, Service Palace. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Okay, so back to the story. The twins. So the grandfather, the king numerator, the Latin king, whose brother took his throne, who thought his two grandsons got sent off to die, he was reacquainted with the twins later in life around here, for they were suspected of stealing his cattle, and then he recognized them, and he remembered that his daughter had two sons, and he knew they were royal blood. So the twins were older now; they were like teenagers, 20s, and they helped their grandfather retake the throne from his brother, who took the Latin kingdom. So the brothers helped their grandfather. Latinum was restored to the proper person, and Romulus and Remus, forgot to say who named them, the shepherd named them, and the shepherd's wife was thought to be a prostitute also. So Romulus and Remus decided to go start their own settlement. So they came around here to the area of the Palatine Hill. Romulus, where the name Rome comes from, started having a struggle with his brother over power. Which one would rule this new settlement? They asked the gods to help them choose who would be ruler, and a bunch of vultures came down to both of them, and they both claimed, look, vultures came to me, vultures came to me, it was a sign, it was a sign. Brothers were fighting. Romulus wanted to build on the Palatine Hill right here. Palatine Hill is what we're on. You have the Esquiline Hill over there, Circus Maximus over there. This is the reason that Palatine Hill was chosen as the emperor's palaces, because of this story about Romulus. Okay, so Romulus wanted the settlement to be right here on top of this hill. Remus, another hill, I believe down there. So they drew a line around the sand of both of their territories, and Romulus came into the territory of his brother and said, I'm the rightful ruler. An argument ensued, and Romulus killed his own brother, Remus. Quick interlude here. This is the Gate of Diabla, 2010 years old. It was built in 10 AD. But the reason why it's significant from the story I was just telling is the reason it was built here is in 750s BC, Romulus himself drew the line, outlined the original barrier of Rome from his brother Remus, right on this spot. So his brother wanted one section to be the city. Remus, he wanted another part to be the city. So right here, the line was drawn in the sand to separate them. And they asked the gods who should be the leader of this new settlement. Romulus had his side, and how the legend goes is things got heated. Romulus went into Remus's territory, either on this side or this side. This is where he drew the line right here, Romulus, right where this gate stands. And he killed his brother. Not very nice, but that's how it went down. Beginning of Rome. Right here. This gate was built 10 AD. I think it looks like it's now church maybe or something. Still standing pretty strong up there. Nice curvature of the... But we're going to get into that republic and the empire and Julius Caesar and all that stuff in a minute. But this gate is significant from the 750s BC. It was built in 1080. All right, let's get it. Romulus set up the city that he created right here on Palatine Hill, called Rome. There's a lot of myth and legend attached to this story, but I believe there's some truth to it. So, because excavations from around 800, 700 BC, oh man, I forgot the date of when this happened. 753 BC is when Romulus killed his brother and started Rome right here. So there were some excavations around 800, 700 BC, matching with this origin story of old huts that were right in this region. So it kind of connects. However, this happened, however the story happened, there was a settlement right here at this time. I believe there must be some symbolism for truth in this origin story, just like all origin stories. It is interesting how this, along with Christianity and many others, had the virgin birth, the mother of Romulus and Remus. Like I said before. All right. The early Roman population was a mix of the nearby Etruscans, some of them moved in here, Latins, and Sabines, another tribe, that joined the community. Romulus, the first king. The early Romans were actually, though, an unsavory bunch of characters in the early kingdom in the 700s BC. Romulus invited anybody who wanted to settle in this new settlement to come down. So they had several other places in Latinum and Etruscan, Sabines, but Romulus needed people. So he started inviting fugitives, murderers, debtors, criminals, pirates, all kinds of unsavory individuals to start Rome right here. So those were the first Romans, actually, 700s BC. And it was mostly men, so they had a problem. Who were they going to marry? Who was going to be, how the next generation was going to start? Because there were only a few women lived in the city. So they quickly, though, started an army. They started the first legion ever, which is incredible. The legions had millennia of time. And also 100 of the most trustworthy men were chosen to be senators and establish the Senate and governance, which happened over here in the Forum, where I think we will continue this story. Roman Senate was established down there in the Forum. We're going to go there in a second. And the patrician upper classes of Rome descended from these early 100 most trustworthy men in Romulus's kingdom. Oh, somewhere along there, can't access it, is the Roman Senate house. So the first one was built in the 700s BC. The first senators were elected by King Romulus. You know, Rome and the kingdom, republic, and empire was kind of a democracy. The Curia, the Forum, senators. United States senators, same word. All right, right here in the middle of the Roman Forum was the beginnings of the city of Rome's importance. All right, we're here in the Roman Forum, built in between the Capitoline, the Palatine, and the Esquiline hills, in the middle of the 7 hills. So right from the start, this was the sacred and political space of Rome, the kingdom of Rome in the beginning. Romulus, all them were here. A lot of archaeological excavations actually went on all along here. And there's tombs from like the 900s BC, which is before Romulus, and all kinds of other huts that were once here. So this was an important place for a long, long time. The Forum. Layers of history. Different things built from this whole story that we're talking about. Converted to churches, more modern buildings, AD, empire, republic, kingdom. For example, this is the temple to Julius Caesar, the first consul general that laid the groundwork for the empire, a god man. Okay, so here in the Forum, lots of things happened for the significance of the entire city. Religious-wise, political-wise, a meeting, a gathering place. The Vestal Virgins were here, which were high priestesses that did certain tasks that had to be virgins. The Pontifex Maximus lived over there, the high priest of the Roman religion. All right, so the heavily men of Rome, heavily men population, they asked for their neighbors for intermarriages. You know, they tried to make alliances with the Etruscans and Sabines and different people, but they were known as a bunch of scoundrels and criminals and unsavory individuals, and none of the elite class of people wanted to marry their children. Okay, so Romulus, it was probably like 10 men to every one woman, something like that. So Romulus came up with an idea, and they were real pissed off about all their neighbors not accepting their marriage alliances. So they came up with an idea. They wanted to throw a grand party up here to the gods. They invited all their Neptune. Actually, it was a party to Neptune. They invited all the neighboring tribes in the area. The Sabines, some Etruscans, some other people, some different Latins. But this party was a trap. So Romulus came up with this idea to get wives for the men of the beginning of Rome. So they were having a great old time. Everyone was drinking, everyone was drunk. They were partying, praising Neptune up here on this hill, 700s BC. And when Romulus made the call, he snapped his fingers. They attacked and they stole hundreds of women, kidnapped them basically, and a bunch of them got raped. And this is the first story of the first generation of Romans. True story. Romulus placated the women. They were married off to all the men that didn't have wives, and Romulus talked them down. He said he blamed their families for all their troubles of getting kidnapped. They were obviously upset at first. I am definitely not advocating for this. This is just, you know, in the old times, this is how things were. This is what happened according to the story. So they accepted their fate, and they became the wives of the first Romans. So one group of people called the Sabines was at that party, and their families was pissed. So they vowed for revenge to get their lost daughters that were stolen by the first generation of Romans. Stolen, raped, and now they're the wives and mothers of the first generation of Romans. So the Sabines organized a plan. Took them a couple years. The early Romans thought they were safe. They thought they got away with their women stealing move clean, but they didn't. The Sabines came and attacked. They came up here to Palatine Hill, and there was a huge battle. And these first wives jumped in the middle of the battle, and they pleaded, both sides, stop, stop. You're the grandparents of our children. You're our husbands. Stop fighting each other. And it was a super intense scene. The wives were crying that were originally kidnapped, but they, I guess, you know, cared about both sides of the situation. They were pleading that everyone was relations on both sides. Basilica Emilia, not a church basilica, but just a civic building. Really cool scene up there. Someone on a chariot, a horse. Some guys. Ooh, a woman's being carried away. Oh, two of them. Wow, look at them. Maybe they're getting saved, maybe not. Can you see that? There's a guy holding a woman. She's looking up. This one, the woman's carrying down. Maybe they're saving them. I don't know what's going on here. Looks like these three are helping each other, pulling. He's pulling him. Ooh, this guy's a knife in his hand. I don't know what he's doing. He's sitting down about to stab that guy. Maybe that's Caesar or something. I don't know. And then there's some other woman. There's a horse. Someone on a chariot, it looks like, or a cart. Woman back there with another person behind her. Some legionary soldiers there. You can tell by their helmets, two of them. Some woman in the middle. She's got her hands out, kind of looking like she's praying or something. And this guy's like running, about to throw something. I don't know. This is cool. It all tells a story, man. I love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it. So the Sabines stopped. They were crying for their children. They didn't want their children to die. So the Romans overcame any other resistance. A lot of the other Sabines agreed with the women, and they merged into one large kingdom. So then the Senate, the legions, the population grew. Even more people from Etruscan and different tribes joined the city-state. The people fought their hostile neighbors, mostly Etruscans, to the north, starting a long line of military dominance right from this spot. The legions, and they were people that first mastered agriculture. They grew into a trading community and a military strength, and they likely got really rich from trading with their southern neighbors from Italian Greek colonies like Ischia and Cumae, down in the south near Naples, where we've been also. The Roman kingdom, after a few generations in the battle, joining these people, the other people, they quickly started dominating their neighbors, and it seemed they grew powerful. Stories likely grew out of true stories that really happened. King Romulus died in a fantastical story on his throne somewhere over here on the Palatine Hill when he was struck dead by a thunderstorm, and the 1,000-year rule of Rome began.